Nigeria now produces 8 million tons of rice annually. Investors bid for companies in the power sector as the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission falls estimated billing. And what issues confront investments in the health sector, and how does that affect development in the country? This is the Outlook of Business Express today, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Welcome to the program. The annual rice production of Nigeria is put at 8 million tons annually. Now, this is according to the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, with 12 million farmers engaged in the production of the commodity. Statistics from the association indicate that farmers are producing an average of 4 million tons per cropping season, with the country having 2 rice production seasons per annum. President of the Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria, Aminu Gwaranyo, says Nigeria has no option than to put a total ban on rice importation before the end of this year. He says the association is collaborating with the federal government towards reducing the cost of production, which will as well bring down the price of milled rice in the market. In the meantime, rice millers describe smuggling as a major challenge confronting rice production and its business in the country. President of the association, Mohammed Abubakar, says smuggling is capable of crippling rice business in the country, appealing to Nigerian customs and other security agencies to find a strategy that will address the menace. It was a rude shock to many Nigerians when the news broke over the internet that more than 6,000 Nigerian doctors are attempting to move over to the United Kingdom. What are the underlying factors and the state of investment in this sector? These and more would be answered in a moment, but first, a background report by Leah Katun Babatunde.
The Nigerian health sector is one that has had its own third challenge to which government is seeking to address. This has become imperative given the rising population that has also increased the number of those in need of health care.
Normally, WHO states one doctor is to 20 patients. But right now in Nigeria, what we're facing is one doctor is to 250 patients.
In a sector often known for churning out some of the worst indices, there seems to be a glimmer of hope with the launch of the second National Strategic Health Development Plan, NSHDP, and the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, BHCPF. However, the concerns are enormous. Less than 5% of Nigerians have health insurance coverage. Out-of-pocket expenditure as a percentage of private expenditure on health has consistently remained high, as well as insufficient number of service providers and weak service delivery potentials form part of the major challenges confronting the sector. A report by the Department for International Development, DFID, states that Nigeria has shown commitment to achieving universal health coverage, but progress has been slow. The 2014 Presidential Summit Declaration affirms that universal health care is key to ensuring equitable access to high-quality, affordable health care for all Nigerians. However, experts say resource mobilization is weak. The second phase of the NSHDP states the need for Nigeria to move speedily towards achieving universal health coverage, as several grounds have been lost due to lack of political will to address issues around the health of citizens. The second NSHDP is the country's 5-year policy roadmap from 2018 to 2022 that would ensure overall improvement of the health of Nigerians through 5 strategic pillars and 15 priority areas. On the other hand, the BHCPF is a fund allocation to cater for basic healthcare needs of all Nigerians. In the 2018 budget, the federal government allocated 1% of the Consolidated Revenue Fund to drive it. Development partners like the Global Financing Facility of the World Bank and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have also contributed to the purse. The expenditure framework for the 2019 budget also shows more commitment to health funding by the federal government. This edition of Business Express seeks to look deeper into the issues and perspectives of health investment in Nigeria as government takes steps through the Budget Office of the Federation to look into the issue of value for money in the health sector.
Thank you, Leah. Now, Obona Okuko is an investment expert and joins us to throw more light on this issue. Glad to have you on the program today.
Right, thanks for having me.
Right. Now, what do you make of the general investment in the health sector and how this impacts on the economy?
Yeah, generally speaking, we're still, as far as I'm concerned as a nation, we're still scratching the surface because, I can give you a very simple example. In last year in August, a company, KKR in the United States, they are a private equity firm when it comes to healthcare services. They announced an investment of $9.9 billion to buy over Envision Healthcare company. Now, these are companies who are into one. They make medical devices, ambulance services. They give they control most of the doctors in the United States. So if you see that kind of huge investment going into from a private equity funds going into,
I was about to say, you're making reference to private sector. Does it mean they have a significant role to play?
Of course, the healthcare cannot be left in the hands of government. That is why you see us going back and forth on this issue, because next year we'll still come back to this same issue, trying to discuss what percentage of our consolidated revenue that we're putting into healthcare. See, because other people, the world has left that level. So nobody is still, we have to get to that point as a nation where we begin to see how we can create that enabling environment to allow private sector to play in the healthcare sector, so that you will see that robust, the robust thing that you want to see happen in your economy.
Now, how can this environment that you're talking about be created?
First things first, there has to be clarity. Okay, now there has to be segmentation regulation. Now you have to also make it possible for people to go into a sector where you have to also remove subsidies, for example. And if you're going to have subsidies, it has to be clearly spelled out, like the health insurance scheme now that is going on in Nigeria. Now, a lot of people are benefiting from it. The private sector, government only regulates, as it were. The real people who do health insurance are private companies. Now, you pay, when you pay your premium, you can actually be enlisted to get some healthcare services from private hospitals, even at government, from government hospitals. Now, this is just like the insurance companies, how they function. That's how healthcare functions also. Okay. So we have to make this a bit more robust. Like I said, one of the services that the company, the Envision Healthcare Services, what they do in the US, they provide ambulance services. So most of the ambulances you see when there are hazards anywhere in the US is not owned by government. It's owned by some private companies who provide that service, and then somebody pays them for that. So there has to be clarity, like I said. So those are the things. The regulation has to be clear, and then we begin to create. You create transactions out of needs. Okay, because they say necessity is the mother of invention. So the government we have to have a critical look at that sector and then see how we as the government will begin to focus more on primary health care, which will be the ones done at the local level. Now, when it has to do with major health services, it has to be done, carried, the bulk of it has to be carried by the private sector.
Okay, now you're talking about primary health care. The subnationals, do you think they are doing enough?
I totally would tell you that I don't think that they're doing enough, because the kind of feelers or the reports that we get from that level will actually still tell you that most of our people at the sub-government level still don't understand what it takes to bring development to their people. Most of them, as far as I'm concerned, still spend money doing things like VIP toilets. So when you see a local government where they still build VIP toilets, that means the person still don't understand the cycle of healthcare, as it were. Now, because healthcare really is as a result of imbalanced environment. Now, you can call it sanitation, but that's what I'm saying. If you have a clean environment, would you have issues with malaria, for example? Everybody, okay, for example, we spent over 660 billion US dollars, but that's all, plus the money is coming from the government partners. That's what we spend almost every year trying to fight malaria. But where does malaria come from? It comes from mosquito. Where does mosquito come from? It comes from a dirty environment. So if you put 10% of the monies that you put in your healthcare into environment, you won't have any need to start looking for how to, eradicate malaria, because you have cleaned your environment. So the mosquitoes won't have where to, you can't breed mosquitoes in the environment.
Talking about percentages, earlier on you did make mention of the budgetary provision of 1% from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. It was greeted with fanfare. What would your take be on that development so far?
Yeah, it's as far as I'm concerned,
is it sufficient?
It can't be sufficient, because I mean there's still so much to be done when it comes to healthcare in Nigeria. And then again, you need to also understand the fact that every medication that you see in Nigeria is still being imported. Now, with the high forex, the highest forex, foreign exchange we'll have to deal with in the country will also affect the value that you get from each naira that you budget for, because most of the drugs that you see is either they have been, I call them, assembled in Nigeria, because the API, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, are still being gotten from countries like China and India. So even if you see a simple Panadol that you take in Nigeria, what cures the headache is not produced here. So what you see is just an assemblage of imported, condiments that they sell to us as, Panadol.
Okay, you are an expert in investment. Now, would you say that the private sector participation is minimal? And can government do it all by itself?
No, clearly, government cannot do it all by itself.
Private sector is very minimal.
They are, you see, these things are a lot of factors come into play here. Liquidity in the system. Now, how many people have access to funding that they would like to put into the healthcare system in Nigeria to actually generate funds from it? Healthcare is there's still an issue of perception here. Healthcare is still being seen as a favor done to the people. Now, until you begin to see it as business, then we create that environment that will allow a private investor who wants to come and do business. For example, like I mentioned earlier, a company in the US, they own the highest amount of doctors. So that means companies own doctors in other climes. So most facilities you see in the US most of the time is just a building with equipment. Then if you want to use, you come and pay for the facility. A doctor will come, carry out whatever surgery that they want to carry out, and then they leave. So everybody gets paid. So everybody knows the corner where the space where they will play in and make money. I mentioned ambulance services too. Health insurance. These are all the areas that you have to also, let there be clarity, and then you will see a lot of people will come in to come and do business and play in that space.
Now, how would you quantify the gains of universal health coverage in Nigeria so far?
So far, yes, we have a target, and then we're working towards that target.
If you would quantify how much coverage there's been, what would you say?
I can say we're still at the level. We're still about maybe 60–70%, which is some effort has gone into it. But I mean, it's still not. We still need to do more. because if there is any outbreak now, you will see that a lot of focus will leave from trying to achieve a target to now seeing how we can manage some of those some of these crises when they hit us as a people.
Okay, now looking in that report, we did see a large amount of doctors writing exams to go to the UK. For a country like Nigeria, if it gets it right, what potential can we get back into the country?
There has to be, we need to also have a control system where any doctor that exits the country will want to come back. Now, what are the work environment for doctors? Would you want to come back here to practice as a doctor when your contemporaries in other climes are making much more than you're going to make here? And then you also have a lot of coverage when it comes to insurance, when it comes to there are a lot of incentives given to that you get working as a doctor out there than working as a doctor here. So I mean, it has to be a holistic look at the entire structure, have a deep thinking into what we actually want to achieve, and then I don't think it's rocket science, but I mean it's work in progress, if you ask me.
Okay, now what would you say? You've already highlighted some of the relationship between the private and government sector in terms of this sector. Now, for any nation, what should be the priority to get it right?
The priority is simply trying to see things from an investor point of view. Investors always want to see how they will get in and then have an exit plan. Getting in will mean putting their investment into where they are going to have return on investment. So now we need to, every country must first of all have an investment plan as regards any sector, be it health, agri sector, and all. Now, if you have an investment plan, so that means you're also looking at it from an investor point of view. You do a very simple simulation. Ask yourself questions. If you were an investor, would you put your money in the health sector in Nigeria? That's what I'm saying. See, you can't talk investment without talking about profit. Now, if it's, if you want the company to set up and then, have their CSR done in your community by building you a health center, that's a different ballgame. But health is business. And until you see health as business, you can never succeed with health. Because like I've been mentioning different things, facility management is all, manufacturing, which is syringes, whatever it is that is, accrues to it. Having your chemical industry all functioning so that you can make your active pharmaceutical ingredient that you need to make your drugs. So it goes all the way, even to the ambulance services, like I said. Telecommunications all have a role to play when it comes to health sector and developing health sector in Nigeria.
Obona Okuko, an investment expert. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me once again.
We now take a quick look at the commodity market. At the Nigerian Stock Exchange, investors lost 291.54 billion naira in the week ended Friday, 15th March 2019. Moplang Dakok has an overview of market performance.
The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization depreciated by 2.45% to close the week at 31,142.72 and 11.614 trillion naira. A total turnover of 1.113 billion shares valued at 13.465 billion naira in 15,036 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the exchange. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 926.286 million shares. The ICT industry followed with 73.76 million shares, while the third place was occupied by the consumer goods industry. Trading in the top three equities, FBN Holdings, Zenith Bank and Diamond Bank, measured by volume, accounted for 551,865 million shares, worth 6.6 billion naira. Also traded during the week were 10,598 units of exchange-traded products ETPs valued at 1.35 million naira in 5 deals, as well as 201 units of federal government bonds valued at 205,083 naira traded in 2 deals. All other indices finished lower except the NSE ASEM index, which appreciated by 0.21%, and the NSE oil and gas that increased by 0.09%. 18 equities appreciated in price, 45 equities depreciated in price, while 105 equities remained unchanged.
Meanwhile, trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed in the red to begin the week, Monday, 18th March 2019. 205.7 million shares exchanged hands on the floor of exchange, valued at 1.9 billion naira in 3,821 deals, while market capitalization dropped to 11.6 trillion naira. Global stock market is experiencing a wave of rising investor confidence. Budgetary Abel has an update of stock markets across the globe.
The 18th day of March 2019 saw global stocks mixed. South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 and Nairobi All-Share opened positive, while Tunisia's Tunidex, Ghana's GSE Composite Index and Namibia overall were negative. European stocks were slightly higher on Monday morning amid mounting speculation the U.S. Federal Reserve could sound decidedly dovish at its policy meeting later this week. FTSE 100 and CAC 40 recorded positive gains, while DAX was negative. Major Asian stock markets closed higher as investors awaited development on the U.S.-China trade front. The U.S. Federal Reserve was also set to begin its March policy meeting later in the week. The Shanghai Composite Index jumped 2.47% to close at 3,096.42. Hang Seng Index rose around 1% in its final hour of trading. Also, the Nikkei rose 0.62% to close at 21,584.50. U.S. stocks were mixed in the morning, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average under renewed pressure by a drop in shares of Dow component Boeing. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite Index opened positive.
Thank you, Budgetary. Let's see how the Naira is trading alongside other major currencies. With that, we come to the end of this edition of Business Express. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter, and the handle is NTA News Now. Have a fruitful week ahead. I am